Stahlhart Papercraft.
Hello, I'm Chris from Stahlhart Papercraft. And actually, I know there are a lot of people out there who are waiting for the Stahlhart Heinkel He-111 or He-111. And I have just recently finished the latest test build, which was test build number 8. And this model has been in development on and off for more than 10 years actually. So those of you who are waiting, maybe it would be nice for you to understand what is the current state of development. And that's why I decided to make this video.
Let's start with the He-111, as it is most known, which is of course the P and H versions, which have the later version of the canopy. And so as you can see here, this is actually a new wing which I have designed for this version. This was because in the previous versions the wing was not, it could always change, and that's why there was never any correct position for the engines. And so I had the choice to, I realized that I would have to need to add formers into the wing at least at the position of the engine, to make sure that this shape will always be will always be the same. And yeah, because that was the problem with the engine, because sometimes they were facing too much up or sometimes they were facing too much down. And then I decided to actually do the wing like really round, with a really round ratio. We will see that in the I will show you the model files later, so you will see that in there. But as you can see now, this new wing is actually basically it's like round. And actually I decided to redo the wing completely for this test build, because I find that actually this kind of very rounded wing is actually a very typical feature of the Heinkel 111. So yeah, so that's why I redesigned the wing, and this is the new wing, and it has two formers inside. We will see that in the model files later. And yeah, and then another thing that we have noticed about this one is that this is kind of a this is the Blumenvoss version of the Heinkel 111, because it's asymmetric, right? It has two different engines. That's of course because this engine here on the starboard side is the engine of the Casa 111, which is the Spanish license-built Heinkel 111, which they refitted with this British engine. And yeah, so actually here you can see the C on this engine. So this C is actually means that this is the version C of the intake plate. And this engine at this time actually came out quite good. It did have a lot of problems because I just couldn't get the intake, the cooler intake correct. And then here on the, of course, this is of course the standard version of the engine, and sometimes it has this intake on one side, something on the other side. Again, you can see here something here. So you see the PH actually refers to, because this is for the P and H versions. And then here old means alternative, so it's like the old version, and then there is a changed version of this cooler, which is then tried out here. And then another, and then here we see, okay, so the down here is already good. This one is actually, I forgot to put the wheels twice on the print sheets. Here again we have an A, because this is version A. This is the Rato pod, which is of course mostly used on the Zwilling version. And then here the B stand is already finished. There are new versions of, because the wing has been adjusted, so the pylons here for additional payload need to be adjusted. So as you can see here, this will actually supposed to go into the corner. Yeah, and then if you go to the nose, and here you have all the numbers. This is so I can, when I'm readjusting the positions of the windows, so I will know which, okay, this is already coming off, I will see the positions of the windows. I will already know which window needs to be adjusted where. Okay, and then the turret, as you can see, the turret here is actually just it's not complete because this is a testbed 8, right? So the turret is basically already finished. It's just one tiny thing which needed to be tested on the turret here, which is this this window that it will align correctly. Or actually, not a window. It's like a frame on the glass, which need to align correctly. And another thing that needed to be tested is whether this, because it has a, as we see that on the model pages, it has a rotation box under it, and it needed to be retested again whether this whole system, this whole assemblage will fit into the fuselage with the new wings. And then you can see here, if you go backward, you can see on the fuselage, okay, nothing is aligning here. That's because here the wing fillets, they need to be completely redone because of the new wing. And then also here the alignment is redone. This is the new rear fuselage, which, as you can see here, is not correct yet. So this is another place where it has been adjusted for the next version. And here's also a place where it has to be adjusted. So this is like 2 millimeters more. And then, yeah, with the tail wheel. Okay, and then now we're finally getting to, you were thinking like, what is this things here, right? So this is actually, yeah, and this is already coming off. This is actually for the cable cutter version, and the cable cutter version is a version of the Heinkel 111, which is actually called it's actually called a Klette-Gerät, and this is like a knife, basically a knife which is in front of the engines and wing to cut balloons, barrage balloons. Okay, and that's a very rare version of the Heinkel 111. Yeah, there are 2 versions of that, and then later they replaced it with a more simple cutter nose, which actually worked better. Yeah, so this is the more familiar Heinkel 111, and then here we have, of course, the one which is often known as Petro. So this is the early one, and this is actually what we see here is actually a combination of the versions A, B, D, yeah, A, B, D, and D, and it's of course, and then for the E version they changed the, was it the E version or the F version? They changed the wing. So this is actually the early wing, as you can see. So if you compare the 2 wings, you will see that this is a late wing, which has a straight edge, which was created to make it easier to produce. And so this is the old version of the wing, and this, and then of course this is the old version of the nose, yeah, where you have the more traditional cockpit, and yeah, everything else is pretty much the same. Actually, here you see the B-stand. You have both versions for the B-stand, and then of course here on this side is the first version of the engine, which is for the A version and C version. C is one of the airliners. This is the first airliner version, so they use this engine. And then you have the nose, right? And you have this one is currently the configuration. I think this is F. This is the F version because they all have different. Well, actually, it's not really F because it has the cooler from the B version. But the B version doesn't have this one, so this one is actually from the E version. So this engine is slightly different on all the early versions. So the B one doesn't have this cooler. The F version has a different kind of cooler, right? The A version has completely another engine. Here you can also see, and actually I'm trying to the area here for the landing gear. I try to make it all the same because it actually should be all the same. And yeah, here you can also see one of the formers inside. So actually for the rear fuselage, I added formers, which I usually don't like to do, but the back fuselage of the Heinkel 111 otherwise would be like too loose, and it really needs to have some strength here because it will not hold every time you without the formats. Every time you touch it, it will just go together. Yeah, so this is the early one, and then here we have a lot. And then we have this one, and this looks like some experimental flying wing. But this is of course the center section with the two air-cooled engines, and this one on the left side, on the starboard side, is the Heinkel 111L, which L is for Luftgekühlt, which is the only official version with a radial engine. And I can take it off. And there's also a detail. There's also going to be a detailed engine actually, but it's already finished, so it's not in this test build. And then this one is the version of a Chinese A version of the Heinkel, which has been refitted with the engine of a U-52. Yeah, so they are the two radial engines, and then here we have many other tested parts, right? So you have many other tested parts. So this is the Hermann bomb, which maybe you already saw in my treasure chest video. Then here's another variant of the P&H central section, which didn't go together well. So this is one bomb side. More versions of the canopy. You see more fuselage parts. Anything else that's worth picking out here? And yeah, of course, this one is the nose for the airliner, and I completely redesigned. I redesigned. I was not happy with this one, so I redesigned this one. Yeah, this is the air cooler for D&J version, which is the biggest one. Different versions of the canopy from the early versions. And I was really unhappy with this one. So for the next test build, I'm actually going to have some totally new versions of that one. And yeah, many different parts you see. And this is the optional Bestand. Different. Yeah, I think this is not necessary to go through all of them. Here's still the torpedo, which has a little. I don't really see it, but it has a little propeller inside, and then this one is actually the detailed engine from an earlier test build. And another thing that I have, of course, is a V1 flying bomb, and this is because the Heinkel was actually the Earth's first plane to carry to carry any cruise missile, so it was carrying the V1 under the wing like this. And so that's why I had to build it with because the landing gear is actually already okay. It wouldn't have to be test built, but I need to have one version with the landing gear, so I can test it with the V1 under it. And so the thing is that the pylon for the V1 I also completely redesigned it. So this V1 is probably not going to be used for the next test build to figure out how the pylon here will be attached. And so this is the actual test build, and let's have a quick look at the model pages. Here we have the Beta 8 or the test build 8, and it's actually called 8A, and the software is actually Affinity Designer, which is a very good vector program, which is a non-subscription, yeah, in your face, Adobe. And I'm using it because it can actually natively read freehand files, and so that's what I'm transitioning to from freehand. And if we go through the model pages, you can see here that it's like actually a total mess. It's very interesting. Yeah, like several people asked me, "Oh, can I build the Heinkel?" And I said, "No, you can have a try, but it's a total mess, and I don't really want this to be out there." So here you have and what we're going to do is we're going to compare the two pages with the I think this can give you some interesting insights into the development process, and I'm going to compare the pages a little bit. So this is the test build we saw, and here we have different fuselage elements. So this is the part of the fuselage which is not correct not yet, so that's why it has here the A, B, C, D versions. So I'm going to test them. Then this part, no, this part has been completely redesigned because of the new wing. These actually, so this is the old version, right? So these are the different parts of the fuselage which I tested for this build. And then here you can see, let's just move this a little bit out of the way. I don't know why this is not picking up. Okay, so but anyway, this was as a help for something, and okay, I don't know why it's not going away. Then here, down here, this is the part on the fuselage. So these two parts have been completely redesigned. This has been adjusted again. Here we see the formers. Then if we go to the second page, so you can see here, this is the previous version. Actually, I already had different variants of the canopy, and I was unhappy with all of them. And that's why. Yeah. And then you have the front fuselage for the airliner, and this is the redesigned version, and it's slightly longer. You don't really, if in this size, you don't really see this user. And the tip part is changed noticeably. And then the engine for the airliner is you can see here, this is the new shape of the wing, and then you have here made it wider because it proved that it's not wide enough. Different propeller versions, different versions of propellers. No, don't zoom in. And then here we have the front, the nose section for the AP and H. And here I brought myself to not forget cockpits for the next test build, because of course they are also cockpits. And because the noses have been modified, and I have to see that they actually fit in the modified noses. Then here you have B stand and A stand. You have those are machine guns, option machine guns. This is a new exhaust I created. And yeah, again, it's like here you can see the old and the alt version. So yeah, and then here there were also two different versions of the B stand, and of course they are only half here because they will always be mirrored because they're symmetric. They're not. Then on this page, the landing gear doesn't really change. There's just one strut here which has to be adjusted. So again, the landing gear will have a rolled version in this case, and a box version. So and then the nose. And what's significantly changed here is actually the gear for the cable cutter version, where I adjusted the length and adjusted the size to fit the new wing. Yeah, and then this is so here's the first version of the new wing. And as you can see here, they are the formers, and the formers are in this version, they are actually pushed into the spar. So this is the spar, and they are pushed into they are pushed from two sides onto the spar. But I found that wasn't working very well in this version. So that's why in the new version you actually you just push one side in the spar, and then you glue the bottom side to it. I'm going to see how that's going to work. And another thing is very notable to see is like here. So here the middle section is two parts and it's straight. And actually I discovered that when I put it together that this is not going to be straight, because the wing here is more narrow than here. So that's another thing that has been adjusted. How we go back to the front of the page, and here we have, yeah, that's not much on this page. This is actually the version for the CASA, the engine for the CASA version, which as we said, so these parts are already okay. The spinner is already okay. And then here is, and here I've been working on the cockpit rear wall because of the redesigned wing. The cockpit rear wheel also needs to be redesigned, and that's why I have to retest. That's another reason why I have to retest the cockpits on the new version. Here's the section of the cockpit, And then here we have the pylons, the bomb, the rato. This is a cargo pod, which is already done, doesn't need to be retested. And then for the rato, what it needed to be, the rato itself is okay, but what needs to be redone is actually here and that's another thing I tested on this test build, is like, where is it positioned on the wing, and then have the different struts here to connect to the wing. And yeah, then here those are simplified turrets. Is another kind of bomb. Here's the Hermann bomb, and again, this is it's about. So here's a different version. So here is like a drop tank. Okay, the fin still needed to be retested. That's was something that was done. So the drop tank is finished here. Now here you had different versions of the front part, different versions of the middle part. And yeah, so the torpedoes, you can see, is now okay. It's fine. Here I have to retest part of the gun side. And here we have the two radial engines, and the Heinkel 11 and the A-mod. And so here I tried different coolers and different versions for the actually Auspuff is the German word for exhaust, for this exhaust pipe. And yeah, and then this is the A-mod. And so there's not a lot of visible changes actually here. So this is the rear of the nacelle, which I have to redesign because of the wing. The rear of the nacelles I have to redesign because of the wing. Then here we're going to have the second wing spar, and then here this is actually this is the detailed engine. There's the center section, and then you have 9 of these you have to put together, and yeah, different versions for the early nose. Go back another time over here. Then this was a test drawing for the rear fuselage. Here we have the 2 turrets. So this is the Turm is actually the German word for turret or tower. And here we have the round part, and then the rotation box, which allows you to rotate it. This is the B-stand for the early versions, which is like, you know, the dustbin. It's called dustbin position. And then we have the late turret, the late turret, where you have actually the automatic turret, and as you can see, it's slightly bigger. And there's going to be the little gun which can be pointed, similar to the one in the Marauder. And yeah, so as they were already okay, so there are no really changes here. And then here we have the simplified turrets, the vertical stabilizers. And this is a completely new page on the next test build, where I'm actually scaling up the canopy in different versions, and to get it in the shape that I want it to be. And yeah, which is mostly because the front angle is not steep enough. So that this is going to be the fun part for the next test build. Then here we have all the other engines, as you can see. So this is and again the letters are for the different variants of the Heinkel. So you have J and B and D, and here you have E and F, and yeah, and then yeah, this is actually the Turkey version is actually the F version. That's why it says Turkey here. That's its own prominent version. Is it F? I'm not sure if it's F or J. Okay. Anyway, there are many versions, as you can see, and then here are 2 versions of that early engine, early BMW, the early engine, and this one is the engine for B, D, E, and F, and with different exhaust pipes and different coolers. And J, yeah, on J. And then finally here we have the V1, and so this is all the V1. And then this is the pilot for the V1 was originally, I used the same one as for the center line ones, but then it turned out that, you know, this is much smaller. So this is the new pilot for the V1, and I actually for the printed test print I actually did different sizes. So I'm going to try which size makes the most sense. There aren't any good pictures of it, but it's the V1 is actually hugging the lower side of the wing quite closely, mostly because otherwise it will not fit with the landing gears down. And then finally here is the early wing with the early wing, and so with the previous version of the formers, and then here the early wing as it is now. Yeah, and then you have all those pages, and of course to print it, I created actually another version where everything is a little bit more compressed. So here this is how it's going to be printed. So they are the full parts now, and parts which needed to be doubled are doubled. The cockpit is printed for reference, and yeah, and then here's the extra middle wing section for the experimental flying wing, and yeah, and then those are the pages. And of course, very important is here to add the 10 centimeters scale, because when it's printed out, I have to make sure that it's printed the right scale, because otherwise all the measurements I take when I adjust the sizes are will not work. So this is how you do it by hand, right? So this is without Blender, right? So I just build it and take measurements, make the adjustments in the software. Yeah, and it takes time.
So now you know what's the state of development, and well, after the test build is before the test build. And eventually this model will come out someday. Thanks for watching.